liked the idea of letting kids fight in schools without getting arrested and suspended for weeks upon end.
Yeah, it seems to be a positive reception that folks kind of agree with, that we've overcorrected the youth a little bit and we've kind of hampered their growth. Seems to be that most people agree with that, but I don't see any positive change coming from it. But
no,
it's nice to shout out into the world.
That's the problem with a lot of the pointers or corrections that a lot of society makes now is we're not going backwards. Like a lot of these things that we had in the 80s and the 90s, we're not going back to that.
I hope we are, but it's going to take something major to get the pendulum to swing back the other way.
It'd have to be a full reset, and I don't know what would cause that, especially like in
we're
schools.
headed towards it, but we can get into that now if you want to. But man, I think we're headed towards. We need it. We need to reset something awful. We need a full-on takeover of the whole United States government. We need to shut them down, let go half the people, reset the tax brackets, reset the moral code, kill all the pedophiles, bring back public executions. We need it. But the truth is, I don't know if we have the body of people that are willing and able to sacrifice what they have in order to get it done. But it only takes about 10,000 people.
Right.
That's all it takes.
Well, as I posted earlier, outrage, the hallmark of outrage is action. And if people are really outraged, they will take action. If they're not really outraged, I don't think that they will. So to me, there's three different courses of action here. One, there's doing nothing, which is currently the action as a society that we've chosen. Two is a demonstration of some sort. This would be a march on Washington. This would take hundreds of thousands of people to actually go and be in Washington all at once for the same purpose. Or three, as you mentioned, revolution would take only about 10,000 people that are armed and are intent on what they're going to do.
Yes, I pray for the second one. And by the way, I would be there tomorrow. You and I don't have a voice that can reach, but let's say this clip right now goes to 2 million people, and let's say 10% of those 200,000 people say, listen, we'll go to Washington, we'll march, we'll do it. We'll actually do something and put our money where our mouth is and go up there and demand that we have a better system that works for the people. What does that mean? That may mean that the federal government gets cut in half. It may mean that like no longer are we paying 50% taxes. 50%. My tax bill this year is ridiculous. I could put that money back in my community.
Yeah.
No longer are there NGOs that are going to get tax-free money and go spend it all around the world. We're going to bring everything back to state levels. Everything. The federal government will be in charge of basically federal crimes and the federal budget, which should be cut by like 90%. Mm-hmm. 90%, dude. I work half the year for the damn government. It's crazy.
The problem is that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and all of Homeland Security, all of the organizations that are supposed to protect us, which is supposed to be the main job of the federal government, are the ones that we have the issue with right now because they're not doing their job. But I also think
they are doing their job.
You can't cut this. Like the problem is everybody wants to say like the CIA has too much reach. We need to cut the CIA back. You don't want to know everything that the CIA is doing.
I don't.
And there's about 20% that we see that we have a problem with, but the rest of the 80%, of course we want to spy on other countries.
Yeah, because they spy on us. But the biggest thing is bringing back the powers back to the states, because the people who live locally in those states can then affect change faster, right, rather than having to go to Washington to affect a law to get the course corrected. A great example is our tax code. Our tax code is bananas. The federal tax code is bananas. I dread tax time every year because I've been audited before by the state of South Carolina, which, by the way, South Carolina is the most corrupt state that I have ever been in when it comes to taxes, because what Trump did is he cut the federal IRS budget, but what he did is he sent that money back to the states for the states to audit you, and then the state takes their audit findings and gives it to the federal government. So basically what they did is they kicked the can down to the states to audit more people, and the state is then putting more money and resources into auditing more small businesses to collect more revenue to send to the federal government. That's what's going on. It's corruption one way or another, but what we need to do is establish that the power is within the people, not within the federal government. And the federal government works for us.
Which, for the record, I've reached out to Governor McMaster.
Oh, so
and
have I.
Also to all of the candidates running for governor this November, and none of them have responded to me. So tag them in the comments of wherever you're listening to this, whether it's a short, whether it's on YouTube. Tag them in the comments, get them to come on, and we will sit down and we will ask them about all of these things, what their plan is to change these things.
You know what's wild is Governor McMaster makes $120,000 a year roughly, right? He makes $2 million a year off rental income. $2 million a year off rental income. I would love to see where that rental money's coming from. I don't know anybody making $2 million a year off rental income.
That's a lot of rental properties.
That's a lot of rental properties. I would love to see how that money is getting channeled.
Have to be corporate properties, because I don't see how else you would. Definitely not 2 million residential properties. That would be outrageous.
It'd be bananas. But it's more, we need to take. My theory is that the government has created its own problems, and then we pour more money into solving their problems. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy system to where the more money we give them, the more problems they cause. And then the more problems they cause, the more money they need for a bigger budget to hire more people to get more done. When half this shit could be automated. If we kick it back down to the states, a lot of the issues such as we don't need the FBI in South Carolina. We have marshals, which are federal marshals. Well, we could kick all that back down to the states. We don't need a federal tax code. You should be able to file taxes within your state. And then the state could distribute that money as one big lump sum back to the government for our needs for the state. We don't need, why would South Carolina allow these things to happen in our state? It's because we have weak government in South Carolina. Our boat taxes are insane. It cost me $450 to register a 2012 truck just in taxes. So if you're making $20 an hour, and you work 40 hours a week, you're bringing home roughly $650 a week. You spent 3/4 of 1 week's work to register one vehicle to get it on the road. That doesn't count car insurance. That doesn't count maintenance.
The cost
of the vehicle, nothing. It's absurd. And they wonder why the middle class is struggling. It's because we're taxed to death. We're taxed to the point where and the benefit that we get from it is shitty roads, shitty schools, shitty teachers, and shitty services. The fire department, the police departments do a good job. I'm not saying those are bad services, but go to the DMV, go to your state office. Greenville County just built like $100 million complex when they still have homeless people on the road. It's like, what are we doing? I don't understand it.
South Carolina ranks, I believe, in the bottom third of schools nationally. And I have said it before, and I will say it again. I'm tired of hearing teachers cry about their pay, because it's the government's job to restructure this so that teachers are incentivized to earn their pay. And this is what I mean by this. Instead of teachers going off of tenure, right? Usually you get raises as you are a teacher for longer in the state of South Carolina. Instead of doing this, we do it by demand. So we do it by test scores. If your test scores go up, and there's a lot of factors that play into this, but if your test scores go up, and in high school, if your class is highly in demand for students to take it, then you get paid more. I think it could work on the college level in a similar way, where if your class is in high demand by students to be taken, then you get paid more. So AP classes, you better make it entertaining, because also teachers don't realize they're in the entertaining business. You can't educate a child if you don't have his attention or her attention.
That's a fair point.
So I hate it when you sit down in a class and the first thing that comes out of a teacher's mouth is, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here for your edification, and that's it. The fuck you aren't.
Well, maybe back 30 years ago that could have been the case, but this generation of kids...
No, you need to grab attention first. Yes. You need to entertain the child, and then once you have his attention, then you can put the information in, but only before first entertaining the child. That's the only way you can do it. And if teachers first came in, it's the only part of society, because they're locked in a room and the kids can't go anywhere. They have a stuck audience. So it's the only part of society where we don't demand that the person that has our attention grab our attention first. And that's why kids don't learn.
Well, can I make a point that teachers aren't our finest and best?
No.
Sorry to say that, but that is the truth.
True. Yeah.
Okay, I went to your sister's basketball game, and I was looking at the men that were in the crowd that were all teachers, right? I could tell they were the higher ed. what I noticed is that certain segment of men, they're all fat, pretty much all of them. They were all out of shape. They all looked like they crawled out of a frat house and went straight to work and took the easiest road possible. I don't believe that we pay enough for teachers. I think the pay should go up to maybe $75,000 to $100,000 a year per teacher to recruit better people. I think the men not the women. The women are separate. I think we have great female teachers.
I agree.
But the male teachers that we have now are basically the dropouts of society. They're all waiting to get to the principal role, and they just play the game till they get there. Maybe their heart's in it, I guess, but the men that I knew growing up were actual men that were teachers. But what I think has happened is the pay has gone down so low that the men who are men that are capable of going and making money are just not teaching anymore.
Well, the other thing about teachers' pay that's really interesting is that we seem to forget the fact that they only work 3/4 of the year. So if you make 60 grand as a teacher, really, you're getting paid for what, 80 grand if you work the full year?
And a lot of them have side hustles.
Right? So, I mean, you chose that job. Like,
yeah, I don't agree with complaining about something you chose.
Yeah, that's the other, like, you knew this coming in, and
again, I'll say it. I think they should be paid more, but I also think the quality of person should be more.
Yes,
like,
both can be true.
Why are you 100 pounds overweight as a male and you're talking to your kids about discipline in school? It makes no sense to me. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an obvious failure when I was at that basketball game, which is the first time I've been around the youth that young in a while. Like, every kid was dressed like either a gangster or they were dressed like shit. All the girls' butts were hanging out for the most part. Half the boobs were hanging out, and these were teenage girls. And the principals and the student and the other staff were just like, meh. And it's like, and I get that that's the parents' duty to manage that, but it's also the role of the educators that we pay for this system. There should be rules and standards at the system that have to be abided by for you to go there. But we don't have that. The standards have gotten so low that it's almost like it's a crapshoot whether you're going to get a positive or negative result out of someone, whether they're capable or not, because there's no standard.
And we're actually in a transition period now that Trump has gotten rid of the Department of Education, where really in 5 years, we're really going to see the merit of South Carolina and how good our school system actually is, which I think is not very good at the moment. Because in 5 years, with no federal oversight, we're really going to see how strong the state government has been leaning on school systems and teachers to do a good job. And if they haven't been doing a good job, they're going to get exposed really, really quickly.
Well, back to fighting in schools, like it's the same principle, right? I believe in bringing fighting back to schools. Let those kids fight. But the truth is we don't have men in those positions anymore that could regulate that I see.
Who's going to facilitate it?
Yeah, who's going to facilitate it? The counselor at school? No. You know, your math teacher who's 150 pounds overweight? No. You know, who's going to do it?
I think we need to be hiring better gym teachers, actually, and then
we need to have gym standards. Like, we need to bring back. I think it was the Kennedy PT test back in the 1950s or 60s.
If you look back in the 60s, every single kid was like 10% body fat or less. They had pull-up standard. They could all do pull-ups. They could all do 50 push-ups.
Not all, but most.
I mean, that was the standard.
Yes,
though, right. I'm not saying all, but that was the standard. Was that most boys were able to do that. And fairly easily, and I think it was fairly common. So,
but they also had gym teachers who were men who'd had no problem telling someone they were fat. Now, I will say that a teacher will get in trouble for that now. But at what cost is it to let the standard slip? Not only in physicality, but in dress code, in morality, in appearance, in studies. It's just, I think we've let it go so far. It's almost.
Well, we've continued to pander to this generation, and the issue is that we talk about this generation being the most depressed, the most sensitive, the most issues, the most non-social generation of all time, but then we pander to that as well. It would benefit a lot of Gen Z today if we actually put standards on them and we force them to come out of their shell and to meet a certain standard of living that they're not currently meeting. Because yes, even if you're depressed, go have a six-pack and then come back and talk to me. Are you still depressed then? Most people, if you're depressed and you start working out and you get really fit and you have a great body, those people usually aren't depressed anymore.
No. And it's also diet. Like, you go to the grocery store and stand in line, and half the people I see have EBT cards, and they're filling their grocery cart full of frozen foods and sodas and candies and snacks. And it's like, no wonder you're poor. It's because you can't get out of bed in the morning, go to work and do a physical job because you feel like shit, because you eat like shit. And you can't say the information isn't out there to eat correctly and treat yourself correctly.
Yeah.
I have never seen a physically fit person that looked well in public, dressed appropriately, that was poor.
Well,
never.
It's all a discipline issue, right? So if you have someone that's not disciplined enough to earn their own wage to support themselves and they're on EBT, do you think they're going to be disciplined enough to eat well and exercise?
And
no,
I think we should get rid of EBT. I'll tell you a story. When I lived in Williamston, I was at a gas station and I was buying milk from the local farm that they sold there. I forget, Happy Cow Creamery. And this lady was in line and she's like, look, my daughter has her own EBT card. She's got her own. She can buy her own stuff now.
Oh, bless.
And it made me so sick to my stomach. Her mom was so proud that her daughter was finally old enough to get on government assistance. This was a white lady, white trash. That is a sickness in the head that I can't get over. How could you be proud that your daughter is finally old enough to get government assistance? She's able-bodied to go out and work, and yet you're proud that she gets government assistance. This is bananas to me. And we see more and more of it. And this goes back to the federal government allowing it. Now, we're making strides to cut a lot of that waste, fraud, and abuse, but it's so widespread that we can't get a hold of it anymore. I think we need a clean detox.
I think it's hard because I do believe in social safety nets at some level.
If you kicked all that money back to the public would have no problem picking up the bill, because only probably 25% of that money actually makes it to the people.
Here would be my idea, and this would be, obviously we'd have First Amendment screechers if this is what we actually did. But I think the money that we allocate for EBT should go to the churches, and the churches should be audited every year. I think we need that anyway, but I think churches should be audited every year, and the money that we give them from the EBT should go directly to food in their own communities.
That way they have to walk their ass there to get the food.
Right. So churches have to be the ones to take care of this. And if we cycle everything through the church, then things improve. But the government is not doing a good job. I don't think so. I think the church would just become an extension and the government become corrupt itself. And it's already close to there anyways. I think it should go back to the people, period, and let the people decide where that money goes. I don't think it's for the government to tell us where we should put our money, period. So why should we give them money to waste and then waste again and then waste again, then it finally gets to someone? It's a never-ending corruption system. Let's get to those churches. I mean, people are fundamentally corrupt. So
no, they're fundamentally selfish.
Yes. But that selfishness always leads to corruption.
In a large pool, yes. So when you
in a small pool. At one time there was 4 people on Earth. 4 people. And the third person to ever exist murdered the fourth person to ever exist.
That's a good point.
So that means if you were one of the first 4 people to ever live, you had a 25% chance of being murdered by 25% of the population.
Yeah.
If you were directly related to Cain, of the 3 people that were around you, one of you was going to get murdered.
Yeah. I'm not.
So this, I mean, this goes back to the earliest. So really, if we think that the world has gotten more violent, statistically, it's actually gotten a lot less violent.
It's way less violent, but it's the scale to which we are supporting people who are not supporting themselves has grown to a point where it's unsustainable.
I completely agree with that. It's how we manage it is where people are going to disagree.
I don't think there is managing it. I think there needs to be death on earth. Some people just need to die. And it's not our responsibility to keep them living. They made those choices. It is not for, now, did Jesus heal the sick? Absolutely, he did. But what he didn't do is enable the people who were taking advantage of his kingdom. Now, if you're taking advantage of what the gifts God gave the rest of people, I don't believe you have the right to live off them. It is not an innate right for people to support you.
That's why healthcare is not a right.
Right. Healthcare is not a right. It is not for America anymore, in my opinion. And this is what a government takeover should be. We're no longer wasting money on people who are not contributing. We're not doing it anymore. That would be one of the first things I cut out of the federal budget is like no more EBT and welfare. All that money gets kicked back to the states. It's not that the federal government would take the money and keep taking it and put it towards something else. No, kick that back to the people who are spending it. If you got someone in your community starving, feed that person, but it should not be the government's job to do it because the government inherently is very bad at allocating money correctly.
Well, in a Christian worldview, it should be the church's responsibility, which we should segue back into this now.
It's not the church, though. It's the body of people, not the church.
Well, when I say the church, I mean the church as the Bible first referenced it, which was the body of people that make up the Christian church.
Correct.
Right?
Not the church itself. Not the building. Not the pastor who makes $250,000 a year to talk for 2 hours every Sunday.
When the Bible references the church, it means the body collective of Christians,
right,
generally speaking. So generally speaking, and they form into the physical brick and mortar church that we think of today. But those have become so corrupt and so damaged, and we can get into that here if you want to. Yeah,
I'd love to, because there's a guy named Joby Martin who preaches at the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville. Very, very, very famous preacher.
Joby, I will drive, if you're seeing this, Joby, I will drive to Florida. I would love to come down and have you on the show. I will come to a service, and I would love.
He's not going to do it. That's a very busy man, and I understand why he's busy, and he does a lot of great things. However, he says some things that really disturb me, which not disturb me, but I think are theologically broken, which every sermon he ends with, bring your best, your first and best. It's like, to who? It shouldn't be that big old building you're in, that $4 million building you're in. Like, I understand that you want to bring money into the church so you can do good deeds with it. I understand that, but that's not what God intended.
Well, nowhere in the Bible does it say tithe 10% of your income so that we can have light shows and audio texts.
Right. And why, if he preaches about men and how men should act and stuff like that, but by the way, I skip all of the worship service to get to his preaching because it's all female led. It's all female light shows. It's the most feminine damn show I've ever seen. And he preaches about being a man, yet I can't be a man and worship to basically feminine music with feminine light shows led by feminine men.
I want to plug this into
then
Grok
he
really
has
quick.
all these guest preachers come up, one of which you really like. What's his name?
Josh Howerton.
Josh Howerton walks up in skinny jeans with no belt, his pants kind of half falling off his crotch, in a skin tight shirt. And then he's got this other preacher that comes up there and talks about how Jesus knelt down and wiped the tears from the man's eyes. It's like, shut up. Why are you making Jesus into such a wuss? And it's stuff like, I can't find a preacher anywhere that actually acts and talks like a man that is not a small church, that is a super small church, that is almost too conservative. It's like there's a balance has been lost in the church. Either you got super conservative or you've got this weird Indo-liberal churches that are mega churches, which, again, if a group of people want to get together, hundreds of thousands of people, and pay money to have a building, I got no problem with that. But you can't say that God wants that because you don't know. And in God's words, it is a gathering of people. Not one time did Jesus mention that we are to gather in a building. Not one time. Nor have a light show. Nor sing and worship in modern music. It's insane. And it used to be hymnals. That's what it used to be. Now it's these songs written in a way of pop culture in order to invoke emotion that's fake emotion. It's called seeker churches. And that's all you see these days.
I want to circle back to worship here because I've done a lot of intrinsic thought about this, because I go to church and I watch people put their hands up like this in praise, and I'm in no place to judge.
Joey Martin demands you to do that while you're singing, by the way.
I'm in no place to judge how somebody else praises their God. But at the same time, I would be lying if I said I looked around me and a lot of it didn't feel performative. It all feels very performative to me. And so to me, I have a very analytical brain, so I need to analyze this and figure out why is this. And it's because all music, all church music, is pitched to a frequency that is 440 hertz. Now, this frequency is an extremely feminine frequency, which is why you find that a lot of men can't relate and can't get into Christian worship music. And the second part of that is that you have this standard in the church where the music just is not that good, right? If we can't criticize it because it's Christian music and because it's worship music, so therefore we can't criticize it. I don't think that's fair. I think we recycled the same 10 songs over and over. I think we need to have a better standard of Christian music, and if it's going to be played in churches, it needs to be better music in the first place. And then second, we need to retune it to not be at this concert frequency that is feminine and alienates all the men in the church.
I agree, because it is not singable by men unless you have a very low register of a very high register of voice. It is almost impossible to sing to.
And then it's almost always female.
It's
worship
almost
leaders.
always a female worship leader, and then it's always a man playing the guitar that looks like he crawled out of a coffee shop, and like that's his job, is to invoke emotion through really sappy songs. And it's like, I can't see Jesus standing there worshiping to that. That's what I see. I'm like, would Jesus be here listening to this? I don't think so. I think he'd be in the parking lot, like hanging out with the dudes in the parking lot, like, are you guys going in there? I can't go in there because I can't listen to that.
That's the other part of that, is that frequency, 440 hertz, is designed to invoke a physical response.
Correct. It's an emotional draw.
So when you hear 440 hertz, whether it's music, whether it's something else, you physically get chills. It's an involuntary response to the frequency. It's science. It has nothing to do. It annoys me. It has nothing to do with the Holy Spirit moving in the church. So when you get chills because you're hearing a song, can it be the Holy Spirit? Can it be God? Sure. But 9 out of 10 times, it's actually your body's physical response to that frequency of sound.
Have you ever been? Have you ever heard?
They're tricking you.
Have you ever heard a Catholic service or a?
I've been to many.
Or a what is the other one? Not Methodist, but
Presbyterian.
No.
Baptist.
No, it's Orthodox. That music will give you chills. It's a baritone and an organ usually, but it's a choir singing that is, they're reciting hymns, not hymns, but scripture basically. That I could see Jesus showing up to and be like, I'm going to listen to the words of my Father. Singing about grace and God held my hand as I wept. It's like, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? God is not some guy who walks around like in a somber attitude, especially Jesus. Like Jesus, from what I have read, was a pretty happy dude. He had a lot to be happy about. He wanted people to be joyful in the coming days of his coming back to earth, not walking around in this somber attitude. And if you listen to any worship leader, like, let's hold our hands out and touch each other and swim with God in this emotional bath. And it's like, what are we talking about? I don't think Jesus is here. I think you went to school for 4 years. You found out nobody wanted you in the free market, and now you're leeching off the church, and you're trying to invoke this emotion because you feel bad about yourself, and you're trying to invoke every emotion you can because that's the only positive response you get in the marketplace. That's it. That's all it is.
I think it cuts to the heart of one message, and that is that a lot of Christianity today is extremely performative, and this is why people don't like Christians. And it breaks my heart because Christians, I have met a lot of them. I am one myself, and people don't like us because of a select few that are stereotyped to represent the rest. And it's because of the performance that we put on constantly. The entire thing is performative. And if you don't believe me, go to a church service and watch it and tell me that's not performative, or just listen to a Christian speak. If you listen to someone that claims that they're really, really close to God, if they pray, they say Lord 20 times. He knows his name.
He knows his name. You don't have to say it more than once.
I like to count in church.
Oh, so do I. And I taught Riley that, by the way. Who taught you that?
It's
I taught Riley that because Riley and I used to be like, Riley, listen how many times I say Lord.
Lord, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Anyway, they say that. I'm tired of I'm going through this season of life. God put this on my heart.
Yeah, like, it's all female talk.
All of these different emotive, performative, feminine traits and verbal language drives me insane. Because can you not just talk like a normal person? God sat down with the poor, the desolate, the most evil people on earth, and he changed them. He sat down with Paul, who murdered Christians. Okay? If you think he was talking like a woman and in
romance novel speak?
Yeah.
Like it's a romance novel? Yeah, he wasn't.
In this metaphorical language, he wasn't. He was talking like a man in a way that he could relate to. So if you are a Christian talking to another person and you are using the Christian lingo, I like to call it, you need to stop because it's performative and you're not spreading God's message that way.
And this all started,
you're turning
by the way,
other people off is what you're doing, actually.
It all started back in like the early 2000s, this indie music craze, like when Mumford & Sons came out. This is what this all stems from. So like New Spring, where we come from, where we're at in the upstate of South Carolina, was like the mega church here. And then it all started this thing where you can walk in and they got a coffee shop in there. And it started this revival of people. And at first I was like, okay, whatever gets them in the door. But then you meet these people and it's like, okay, you're supposed to graduate from that at some point. You're supposed to graduate from the seeker churches and the hollow messaging that's there, and you're supposed to grow into a more theological grasp of Christianity. What I see is they're just stuck there because it's such a strong pull. You got this community of people who show up together, and they all put this money into this $30, $40, $50 million building. They got a $3 million light show and band set up, and they got all their favorite people there, and they get these guest speakers to come out that dress like homosexuals, that are all straight white men who then talk like what they hear on Instagram from the influencers they see. And it all looks like it was curated in anthropology and then brought out and put on stage. And it's so addictive because that they can't break away from it. And because everything else seems so conservative. Like when you're used to that, if you were to try to sing a hymnal, it would seem like you're going back to the Stone Age.
And I would also challenge people, if you go to a good church, they put out a quarterly budget. They give everybody a pamphlet, and it should have all of the expenses that the church has spent that year. And if you don't look through that budget, you should. If you aren't auditing your own church, then who do you think is keeping them in check? Because it has to be you. So if you belong to a church and they put out a budget and you don't look at it and you don't fully go through it and look at every single thing that they've spent money on, and if you have a problem, you need to reach out to the church and let them know that you feel that way.
But I just crapped on the Church of 1122 a little bit, and I want to give them a little bit of praise. So from what I understand, they're doing a lot of plant churches around the United States that are home-based plants, and that is what I'd love to see. I would love to see more people do church in their homes rather than going to a building. If you got the money for a building, you got money to put it elsewhere. Or you could buy an old church, that's fine too, if everybody wants to get there and chip in or whatever. But what happens is it's the animal farm. Basically, is like the farmer then, the animals rise up, take over the farmer, and then the pigs become the farmer. It's like it never ends. And you need to clean house every once in a while. And I don't see a future for mega churches bringing Christianity a long way into the future. I think it's going to be a phase that dies out, but then Christianity is going to see a lull because of it. Yeah. But I hope that we get back to that. But again, I want to give praise where I give criticism. I wish Joby Martin would quit dressing like a a wannabe cowboy and this like, and then half the time he's dressed like a wigger, and then he's got these big chains on, these big rings, and it's like, all right, dude, like chill out, like enough of the showy stuff. I mean, he has a great message, but it's something I see in the guy who was the preacher of New Spring here in the upstate now has a church called Second Chance. He got divorced, married some 20-something-year-old. He's in his 50s, and he dresses like an 18-year-old that works at Abercrombie and Fitch. It's like, I can't deal with those people. I can't deal with them because it's fake. It's performative and it's fake. I met one of his people that work at his church. He was like 28 years old. I met him I was buying a gun, and I met him at the counter. And I was like, well, what do you do? He's like, well, I'm a worship leader at the Second Chance Church. I was like, oh, yeah, I know of that church or whatever. And I was like, you got kids? He's like, no. I'm like, you married? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're 30 years old. What are you doing? You're living for yourself, which is what that church, let's all like live free and like we can do whatever we want. It's like that sort of mentality, and it just doesn't work. Which is the other thing. If you are an adult and you are married and you are not having kids, you have made the choice to not have kids and you want to live, and I'm not talking about the people that can't have kids. There's a difference. There's a difference. The people that are choosing, that can have kids and are choosing not to and are living for themselves, you are being selfish. Imagine God's first command to everybody on earth was to dominate the earth and multiply. Go forth and multiply. Multiply. Have kids, live for others, and raise up a good next generation. That is the number one thing that we can do. The argument that I can't imagine bringing a child into this world, bullshit. That is your only defense, actually, is bringing a good child into this world. That is the only way that you can change it, is to bring a good child into this world. So for you to not bring a child into the world is actually one of the most selfish things I think you can do. Imagine going back 300 years to where your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather is eating potatoes and mush and living in a hut in Ireland. Right now you're in the United States and you have ancestors. And imagine telling him, I'm waiting because like, well, let me impersonate a minute. No, I think we're just going to wait. We're going to have like some time to like travel around and like, do stuff as a married couple. Bro, you're 30. You ain't 22 anymore. Yeah. You're 30 and you don't have children. What's wrong with you? You think it's hard to bring up kids now? You can, like, it's a stupid concept. I'm not even saying push them out in the first 2 years of marriage. Volcanoes, tornadoes, floods, transportation, river crossings to get your ass here. You are a long people who escaped death so that you could have a chance to live on this earth, and you're telling them that you're going to stop the bloodline because it's fucking hard? What are you talking about? The wolves are not chasing you around. There's not a guy with a fucking spear chasing you around trying to kill you, and you're telling everybody in your long line of generations since Adam and Eve that had it way harder than you that it's too hard now. And actually, it's not that expensive to have kids. No, it's not that expensive. Once you're done with diapers and formula, like, hey, sell your Subaru Forester and quit going to coffee shops every day, and you'll be able to afford a kid. Like, they eat what you eat. And I mean, and they don't eat much. And some, and some clothes. Like, it's not a terribly large for just to have the kid, right? I mean, if you want to give them the extra abundance in life, that's great if you have it. But if you don't have the abundance in life, they'll be fine without it. Yeah. The happiest people I know are people who are old who have generations of children. Those are the happiest people I know. Do you know who Simon Sinek is? No. I believe it was him. And if I'm misattributing the quote, then I apologize. But I believe it was him that said his greatest regret in life. No, maybe it was John Deloney. I believe it was John Deloney. He said the number one thing that he learned is that you shouldn't try and make a happy kid happier. So if you have a boy that's sitting in the mud playing, don't pick him up, give him a shower, and then bring him to Big Air. Right. He's already happy. Go put on some shitty pants and sit down in the mud with him. And those are the memories that he will enjoy and love. Yeah. Don't try and make a happy kid happier with money. He doesn't care. He cares about spending time with you. Yes. Your presence. That's all he cares about. Yes, you do not have to have a lot of money to raise good children. In fact, the majority of people on this earth were raised with no money. And there's a lot more good people that come from no money than there are good people that come from a lot of money. It's just
That's true.
it's not anecdotal evidence. Everybody here has met rich people, and they're just, their children are not always the best to be around. But you go meet some middle class family and they got awesome kids. They don't get to go on expensive vacations, and that's okay. Their kids are great because they spent more time in a family atmosphere.
Yeah.
We played cards last night about every other weekend or every weekend. You guys come over for dinner. We have dinner. The kids are around. We play card games till 12 o'clock at night. We bullshit, have a drink or two, not get drunk, but have a drink or two. And my kids are going to grow up with core memories of that. And then your kids are going to grow up with core memories of that, because we're setting a foundation that family is important. Mm. Money doesn't have anything to do with that. Nothing.
That costs zero money.
It costs zero money. We ate fish that I caught and that I cleaned. And my wife made creamy mashed potatoes. I made some striper that was amazing. She made a lemon butter sauce. We could have gone out and ate that, and it would have cost $60 a person for dinner. You don't have to. All these things could be done at home that create a good life and create good children. But people are skipping this step. We're like, well, I can't bring a child into this water, and we're waiting. We're going to go have some us time. It's like, first of all, you're 25 years old, and you've already had enough you time.
Actually, if you're in the first 2 years of marriage, I'm actually a big believer in
first 2 years, but
settle in and get to know you and your spouse, create a life together. But I mean, sooner or later, if you're 5 years in and you haven't started bringing another child into that life yet, then that gets to be where, like, what are you waiting for?
See, I don't even believe in spending time as a married couple to figure that out. I think you should do that while you're dating.
Right. But I mean, to enjoy each other and enjoy the life that you have together.
Yeah, but after a year, that gets kind of boring. Like, that's what people forget is, like, you do get bored of your partner until new stuff comes along.
I come from a place I've seen, and our generations are different in this way.
They are.
My generation has seen a lot of divorce. So
every generation has, since the 1960s.
But our generation more so than any other generation.
No, the divorce rate has stayed about the same for about 40 years.
Okay. Regardless, I think our generation, the appetite that we have is that we are very hesitant to bring a child into a relationship for fear of divorce. And so,
right, but that's an irrational fear. Then just don't get married to that person. That has nothing to do with the marriage itself.
Right. But my point is, I would rather a relationship end in the first 2 years of marriage before you bring a child into the equation.
That's an irrational fear. It's an irrational fear.
Now, it
may be a fear itself. I'm not discounting the fact that it's a fear nonetheless. Mm-hmm. But that's essentially back to the...
I think the data also supports, though, that most divorces happen right after childbirth because of all of the sleep deprivation and because of you're caring for a new human being. And
it's a stressful situation.
Right? You're in a very stressful time in your life. So that can cause conflict as well. And I think the data supports that. But...
I'm not saying
know that there's
easy.
a right answer is the issue, other than having kids as...
I do think there's a right answer, is that life is hard. And you're picking your hard. The hard with children is much better than the hard without them. That is the simple answer. Everything is difficult. Get over it. And do the thing that is the hardest, that is the most rewarding. I mean, that is the simple answer. It's not an if or. It's that we need more people on Earth. You don't want to be Japan, where right now the population is almost going to get cut in half in the next 10 years, and they're all old, and they don't have a base to support the elderly. And all the fucking planet people are going to be like, well, it's better for the Earth. No, it's not. No, it is not better for the Earth for there to be less people. It is actually the opposite. The more innovation we have, and the more brains we have on Earth, the more chances we have to do something spectacular. Less brains is not better. We need more geniuses on Earth. Therefore, we need more people to create more people to produce those geniuses. That's how life gets better. But it's a choice of, do you want to be single and risk it for the biscuit for your nights out at the brewery, to wait till your 30s to have kids, and then you have to go through IVF,
which is something I want to hit on, because I'm at a loss on this. I fully support, I will say this right now, I fully support IVF.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wish more people would do it, and it mind boggles me how Christians can sit here and be anti-abortion and anti-IVF at the same time. It's one or the other. You either value life or you don't.
Well, I don't know that stance from Christians. I've never heard anybody be in opposition of IVF. But what I will say about IVF is quit waiting so damn long to have kids and you won't need it. Your best chances to have children are when you're young. The reason most people get IVF is because they're waiting too damn late to have children. That's why IVF is so popular, because it's 30-something-year-olds. Well, guess what? Duh. I mean, like, God, your body times out. Women have a certain amount of eggs. They're born with a certain amount of eggs. Those eggs go bad. Men can produce sperm until we die. So it is, if I were getting married today, I would tell my wife beforehand, we're having children while we're young. It's not an option. If you don't want to, I'm sorry, we're not getting married. Because the chance of me not leaving a legacy compounds the older you get. And that's not worth the risk to me. It is not worth the risk for me to not leave a generation behind full of our bloodlines so that you could have your yoga in the middle of the day because you don't want to be disturbed.
I think the argument against IVF that I've heard from most Christians that are opposed to it is that you're going directly against God's will for your life somehow by intervening with medical interventions to have children.
He produced Jesus out of a virgin.
That. And then also, should we also get rid of all birth control? Should we get rid of all medicine, all vaccines? You know, if you get the flu, you know, that's God's will. You're supposed to die. Like, that's where it brings me back to, you are either pro-life or you are not pro-life. And there is no nuance there. If we can bring more life into the world, we should do that if we have the medical ability to do it.
I agree.
So that's and I hope people
is it in your circle of Christian school folks that has came up?
Yes. And then also I'm seeing more and more Christian creators do the same.
Against IVF?
Yes.
Well, they should just be quiet.
I agree. But
just sit down and shut up. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, just be quiet.
That's good advice for a lot of people today.
Yeah, just be quiet. You need to take a turnout because you haven't thought that through. Oh, a medical treatment that brings more life into the world? How bad? Yeah, I bet you don't have very many children. I bet they're not married. I bet that's what it is. People have this thing that they bring their most insecure thoughts into their opinions. That is something I see regularly. Is like, especially through Christians. They know they fornicate and they jerk off to porn. So they're against child exploitation. They're the first people like, yeah, no child exploitation.
Yep.
It's like, okay, what are you doing in your free time? Oh, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know that you're against IVF because your best friend can't conceive and you want to leg up on them because you have 3 children. That's really what it is. It's these insecurities that come out in opinions. That's my general take on it. Because there's no rational argument. If God put a baby in a virgin, that is no different. How is that different than IVF?
I don't see a difference, but
so he implanted a sperm into an egg.
Yes.
In a woman that did not have sex. How's that different than IVF?
I don't think it is.
There is no difference.
Yeah.
So you're saying God can do it, but we can't do it? He gave us the ability to do it. He gave us the ability to do it, and he gave
everything that we can do comes from God.
Yeah. So he gave someone the brain power to figure it out medically, but he doesn't want us to use it. Has he given us signs that it's a bad thing? Have all those babies died? Have they turned out to be bad people? I don't think so.
Not that I know of. No.
I know people who have used...
It's a relatively new technology, as I understand.
I know people who have used IVF and their kids are great.
Yeah.
Okay? But
it's becoming more and more common.
Yes, and it's because people's choices.
Right. It's because of people's choices and waiting to have kids until their 30s, which is the side effect of all the things that we just discussed.
And I think the women's liberation movement is slowly going away, thank God, because it's been telling women that they shouldn't have kids for a long time. And a lot of women that are in their 30s are making TikTok videos and Instagram videos like, it was a bad choice. I regret this. Going to work sucks. I'd rather just stay home and be with the kids. It's like that's happening a lot too. So I hope we're seeing a change in tide there.
Over the next 20 or so years, I am hoping that we see a rise in the number of sex and alcohol use. And here's why I say
me too.
this. Let me explain it. Because even though sex before marriage, I will not advocate for, that's not what I'm saying here, is good. Alcohol, underage drinking, and sex before marriage is a side effect of a younger generation going out and being social. And I think the amount of the social activity that we're missing, which is causing the divide and the depression that we're seeing constantly, especially in this youngest generation, is the result of screens that they're on constantly. And as a result, this is why the alcohol industry has lost $380 billion over the last 4 years, because Gen Z is not drinking once they turn 21, and they're not drinking once they're 17 and 18 and 19 and 20 either, when they're still illegal. And as a result, they're not having sex, and they're not having face-to-face conversations with other people. There was a study done that says that people in high school these days go out about 60% less with their friends after school than previous generations
They
did.
also don't have
and
sex.
I think, right. And as a result of that, they're not having sex and they're not abusing alcohol. So,
which are net positives, but there's net negatives to that net positive.
There's net negatives. So I'm saying the alcohol and the sex are negatives that are associated with a positive thing happening.
Right.
You're always going to have a drag on a positive thing. And we are now seeing that positive thing go away, and so are those negative things. But I'm saying if we see those negative things, which is sex before marriage and alcohol use, go back up, that will indicate that we actually have a positive correlation between socialization between the younger generation, which I think is a much more important aspect of this continuum than if we had no socialization and less sex. And
I think it's
use.
a chemical imbalance. I think that's all it boils down to. I think young men just don't have as much testosterone as they used to.
That's very likely.
And it has to do with diets and sedentary lifestyles. I think it all stems from lack of testosterone and chemical imbalances. I think that birth control has affected a lot of that. And I think that kids eating crap food all day, every day, and sedentary lifestyles have just depleted testosterone.
And girls need to be very careful about birth control and what they're putting in their body.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
especially the pill, because that disrupts your hormones.
Oh, dude, don't get me started on that. Yeah, it disrupts every female's hormones. And it is very, very bad for a female, but it is... I consider it a net positive for society.
I agree.
But it's got some damaging effects.
It's the same as SSRIs. Is it a net positive that we have them? Yes, because they are good for society in general. But before you use them, you should be very, 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 very aware of how they will affect your body. If women are on the pill, it is scientifically proven that it changes your hormones so much that you are attracted to more of a nurturing person. Right.
More feminine man, let's put it that way.
Yes. So you will be attracted to a more feminine man. And then once you get off of that pill to go have children and you're already married to that feminine man, you will then find him unattractive and disgusting because you want a real man, not a feminine man.
Yes.
anymore.
And you see that all the time in divorced 35-year-olds.
Which I think is, I would like to see the correlation between the advent of birth control and the drop in testosterone.
It's probably huge.
It's probably hugely correlated.
And I also think women's pheromones produce more testosterone in men, right? So if you've got a group of women who just are not putting off pheromones that they want to have sex, then men's testosterone will drop. So I think it's a lot of combining factors. And I think it's kind of like when you put a lot of chemicals in a swimming pool and it turns green, you don't know exactly which chemical caused it to turn green. So you got to stop putting all of them in there, but you're afraid to because then it'll ruin your pool. That's kind of where we're at in society, that we just don't know what affected, what started the collapse of men's testosterone, and then what the net benefit would be to taking some of those out and what the net negative would be. But if you're 17 years old, 18 years old, and you're a man, the first thing I would do is start eating right. It's not that expensive to eat right. You don't. And then from there, I would do anything and everything I could to raise my testosterone naturally. Then I would get a girlfriend who's not on birth control. Or if she is on birth control, I would talk to her about like getting off of it if you're not having sex. I would recommend not having sex till you're married because trust me, it's not a good thing. Been there, done that. It is not a good thing to have sex before you're married. But it is awesome to want to have sex with someone. It is awesome. It's a good feeling. You
Which
get
is the same,
jacked up when you want it bad.
Which is the same way that pacifism in men is not noteworthy if you're not capable of violence.
Yeah, a guy who says he doesn't have sex but doesn't have the opportunity to have it is not impressive to me.
Exactly.
You're right. A guy who could have sex with anyone he wants, like Tim Tebow, but still stays celibate. Whew. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
You had more willpower than I did, but to claim this virtuality of like, oh, I'm a virgin. Yeah, well, no one wants to have sex with you. Good job. But why don't you become someone everybody wants to have sex with and see if you can hold to that?
Right.
But yeah, as a young man, that's what I would do is I would get my testosterone, because you're going to find that women find you more attractive, not only by the way you look, but by the way you carry yourself. An aggressive man is an attractive man to women. Women do not like pacifist men unless they are on birth control, or they had a lot of women who look for passive men have been abused. Mm-hmm. It's because they don't want any sort of conflict in their house or anything that intimidates them. And I went viral on the internet for saying that I could clobber my wife and beat her to death if I could, and if I never took the hospital, she would die. And this faggot, whatever his name is, what's his name?
He's not worth remembering. I could look it up.
No, I want to know his name. We looked it up just a minute ago. But anyway, he's made
Will Hitchens.
Will Hitchens, this douchebag out of Australia.
You're a grifter and an idiot, and come on the podcast if...
I emailed him to debate him. He wouldn't respond. He puts his wife out there half naked on the internet and cucks her out, and I guarantee you they're swingers. And he wants to lecture me about how I treat my wife. Most women would crawl over broken glass to have my wife's life. My wife lives a fantastic life, and I've never hit her. I've never abused my wife. I never would abuse my wife, but she loves me because I am aggressive. She likes that I'm a wild animal. She likes that I walk around wanting to kill somebody all day. Not kill her. I love her and I adore her, but I have a lot of aggression. It's because I have a lot of testosterone, because I'm healthy and I eat correctly, and this is the way men are built. And if you're not built like that, then you may look at me and say, oh, he's probably abusive. No, you just don't understand that a lion protects all his lionlings.
Yep.
Right? And that's who I am. And I don't raise sheep. Well, it takes lion to raise little lions. And that intimidates a lot of people. And there was women who reached out from Australia, from England, messaging my wife, asking her if she's okay, and telling her that she should divorce me and poison my food and kill me or whatever. This happened a lot, by the way. And people were calling my brother and telling him that I'm a piece of crap for saying this stuff online. And 90% of it was single women. And all those women most likely have been abused by a man.
More than likely, yeah.
More than likely. And all the men who had a problem with it were most likely the men who would beat a woman, because they don't know what it's like to protect a woman. I have the ability to kill my wife. Absolutely. But I would never do it. I love my wife. And this Will Hitchens fag who walks around cherry picking videos off the internet, but yet puts his girlfriend half naked on the internet for everybody to see half naked and cucks her out. You call that protection? That seems a lot like...
I want to say this because I don't want to spend too much time on him because he's not worth it.
No, but he's an example of the problem in society.
Right. If you are a grifter and you are cherry picking videos off the internet so that you can get views because you want to react to them and shed everybody else in a negative light, and then you want to go and post videos about how love is important and how you should love and sit down with everybody, which I saw that video that you posted as well. You're not only a hypocrite, you're a grifter, and you're a terrible person, because he just outlined all of the different consequences that we personally have faced because of the fake content that you cherry picked and selectively edited.
And I'm fine with it, by the way. I put that on the internet and I deserve backlash. I do not escape responsibility. It is my responsibility to take consequences for what I say. And my family's fine because of it. My wife had one bad day because of it. Other than that, I assured her that I loved her and everything was good. And then she let it go because she's a real woman. And she doesn't wallow in the filth of these other single women who want her to be miserable with her. That being said, I have that responsibility to take responsibility for my words.
Right.
But what I will say again is that real men have the ability to be violent, However, they're not violent. Men who have no capacity for violence are easy to shame the men who are, but that is not a virtue. It is simply because you don't have the capacity for it is the reason you are most likely going to be the attacker. And I'll leave it at that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. But we got over it as a family. It was a quick blip, and then it's over.
So the next thing I want to hit on is, are aliens real? Trump is releasing in the following days the UFO files that, because Barack Obama released classified intelligence and said that aliens are real. And so we are about to see in the coming days, allegedly, whether this is fact or fiction.
Total fiction.
You think so?
Yeah, it's not. Aliens aren't real.
I don't know, man. I think it's a little bit irresponsible to think that we're the only intelligent life in this vast universe.
If aliens are real, then God does not exist.
I don't think those two things are.
I can't see how God would allow those two to conflict.
Why is that? Explain.
And when I say God isn't real, I mean, if an intelligent, non-human life comes to Earth, right, or has been coming to Earth, and we have physical skeletons of non-human beings, right, the story we've been told about the Bible would be in great conflict. It would be in dramatic conflict. Because if God is the ruler of the universe and he made us in his image, and then we get something else that is not of his image, what does that say? Someone answer that for me. That's the greatest conflict I have with aliens, is like, if we are made in God's image and then we get something that is not in God's image that comes in as another life form, then how do I reconcile that? So God made something else not in its life form that then has rule and power over us?
Nobody thinks that it's going to be these little green beings that are coming back, right? I don't think anybody thinks that. Right? Not as like cartoons portray them. Like there's not going to be these little 3-foot tall green intelligent life forms. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't know that that's not the case. But there's always been great debate about how old the Earth is, and nobody can settle on a number. So I still think that there is
It's definitely not billions of years old. There's no evidence of that.
I don't know the answer, but I do know that based on preponderance of the evidence, we can't prove anything, but based on the preponderance of the evidence, God exists.
Yes.
So to me, there has to be some explanation that
there's no evidence that God exists. There's evidence that Jesus existed.
Yes.
Right.
No, there is actually, I take that back. There is evidence that God existed, that God exists.
I haven't seen that evidence. I've seen evidence
Nothing can just come from nothing. Everything cannot come from nothing. The fact that we are here, creation, the fact that creation exists, points to
yes, but that is not evidence.
That's evidence.
I would disagree on the basis of evidence, a lot like carbon dating. It's like, well, the unit of measure could be skewed. I don't believe there's any evidence of God. That's what makes him real to me, is that there is no evidence of anything, which points to a creation. There is no evidence that we were created or not created, or that there's any start or any end or anything. So it must have come from something else. There is no evidence of God, in my opinion. There's 100% evidence that Jesus walked the earth. There's no evidence that he died and rose again, other than accounts from other humans. But it's faith that makes it all true. And faith is the basis of not knowing. If we had evidence, it would ruin faith. It is the opposite of faith. That's why I believe God left no evidence. Now, if aliens come down here and they're weird creatures that are not in God's image because we are made in God's image, then that is a conflict of the very notion that God created us in his image.
Especially if they're more advanced and more intelligent than us.
Correct. Then how are we made in God's image and then they are too?
Could they not be an extension of God's creation?
They could, I guess, but I mean, there's no biblical account of that. I mean, God gave us the story of what and who we are, and that was not mentioned.
I personally have always questioned the biblical canon because I think it was put together from the research that I've done. The biblical canon was put together by a bunch of people, not by God himself.
Correct.
So
Jesus never wrote anything down.
There are other biblical passages like the book of Enoch that are not included in the biblical canon. And in the book of Enoch, there is evidence for aliens.
Now, I would be, if someone came to me and presented that God spoke about this or Jesus spoke about this, or there was some biblical account of that, I would say, okay, then God is real and those are part of those too. But as far as the knowledge that we have now, if some other being comes to this earth that is more intelligent than us and we are made in God's image, how do we rectify that with Scripture?
I go back to the book of Enoch, and I think you should look into it too, because I've asked pastors, I've asked significant people that have studied the Bible a lot more than I have, and I've yet to get a satisfactory answer in my mind about how the biblical canon was created and why the book of Enoch was not included in it.
It was done by the Orthodox Church. There was a group of people that came together and decided which book should stay in the Bible. Now, there's a really great...
And why was the book of Enoch not satisfactory? The answer that I've gotten is because it was too far out there, because the content in it was decided that it wasn't believable.
Right. And there's a great researcher, what's his name? The real jacked blonde guy that went on Joe Rogan. He's super smart, dude.
He's
super
awesome.
smart. He's awesome.
Wes Huff.
And I would love to ask him, if aliens are, how do we rectify that with God? I would have to have I don't want to lose my faith. I would still believe in God, even if aliens came here, but I would have a hard time convincing someone else that God is real if aliens came here.
I think we will get an answer on this, but...
And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Contained in the book of Enoch is a very alien-like life form that was larger than humans at the time. And archaeology shows that humans dating back to around Jesus's time were significantly shorter than us.
Well, yeah, that has to do with diet and...
Right, but the description of the people that came down that were very alien-like were the Nephilim, that were significantly larger giants, yes.
Yeah, which were measured, they say, around 7'6" or something like that, based upon the spear that they found and the shield that they found, that they measured, and the biblical scripture is something about some stones tall, which they got to that it was around 7 to something foot tall, or even close to 8 foot tall, which that
sounds a lot like modern day humans to me.
That's what I'm saying. It just sounds like a guy had big, who was big. Now, does that mean there's not now? And we can get into Neanderthals and stuff like that, which, by the way, I think are all just humans.
To me, there's been a lot of evolution to humans, and there's been a lot of evolution to creation, and the living life forms that were created under God. And if we are throwing out things like the book of Enoch when we're creating the biblical canon, maybe there's other biblical texts that we don't have access to. So that's why...
Then how would you rectify the question I have? If we are made in God's image, is it God, not God's physical image? Well, no, Jesus was a human. So if he sent his son in his image to earth, then that would be a human form. How would we rectify aliens coming down in another life form and they're obviously more intelligent than us. It is a different species of person that is not in God's image. How do we rectify that?
Okay, let me ask you this. Let's say there's, just for experiment of thought, all right, and stay with me. Let's say that this is not the only Earth.
Okay.
Let's say that there is, because this universe is so vast.
I get all that. Yeah.
That there could be
hundreds of thousands
of Earths that we would never even realize. And that is not inconceivable. God is so powerful that he would be able to do that. Let's say there's hundreds of thousands, infinite Earths in the universe, and the universe is infinite, just like time is infinite. Would that then disprove God?
No,
I don't think it would. Okay, now we take that. Let's say that aliens are just the same way we are not similar to Neanderthals.
But I believe we are.
Well, in some ways we are, and I'm sure we will have some similarities to whatever alien life form that the government reveals in the next few days. What if it's just another evolution of humans that, I mean,
There is no evolution of human, though. There's no fossil records of the evolution of human, period.
To my knowledge, let's say this figurative world where there is hundreds and thousands or infinite other planets, who's to say that they were all started at the exact same time and that they're all in the exact same development?
I'm not saying that we're getting into what ifs of what if God created another Earth. Right?
Okay.
But that's beside the point of the question that in Scripture, God created us in his image.
It's not, though. Here's my point, is if we have different human species,
God takes a lot of different.
Here's my point, is the fact that I can raise a what if and I can raise a hypothetical out that still aligns with Scripture means that our knowledge is so limited of an interpretation of one book that I've already proved that is not all encompassing, or at least possibly not all encompassing, that there has to be an explanation that includes both God and other intelligent life forms.
I would be open to that, but it would have to be someone's more into biblically savvy than you or I to explain 100%. That to me, to make me feel comfortable with the Scripture that outlines it. But that's the conflict I have with aliens.
It would be a significant moment of discomfort. I'm not discounting that at all. But what I'm saying is in the same way that there's certain things on Earth already that we cannot explain, right? Like creation. Like, we can't explain that.
No.
It went from nothing to something, or at least we think, right? That is unexplainable by man. In the same way that we don't have an explanation for that, and we're just not supposed to know. It may be similar with aliens. We're just not supposed to know, or we don't have an explanation.
Well, I feel bad now for saying that God doesn't exist. I feel bad for saying that, and I should not have said that, because I love God a lot. And I'll have to answer to him tonight for a reason I said that. But I would pray to him like, what's going on? And by the way, I wouldn't quit believing in God. But it would be very hard for me to rectify that. Mm. Okay, the dinosaurs I can understand.
Yeah.
Because we still have animals that go extinct.
Yeah.
That is a trajectory that I can understand. The Neanderthals, I could totally understand a lost tribe that was out there by themselves for a long time, and they had a different genetic makeup than we do, a lot like the South, like Chinese people and Taiwanese people are a lot shorter and they have different face makeups than we do. The Eskimos in northern Alaska, their faces are almost flat, right, on the front. Like, there's ways to explain that.
Well, and that was my point in doing that exercise, was because I know when you first said that the dichotomy between either aliens are real or God is real, and that's the only option. I know you didn't necessarily believe that, and so I wanted you to clarify that in your head.
Yeah, I mean, because it does.
It raises questions for sure.
Okay, maybe God's not real, but the Scripture has a lot to answer for.
Yes, that God is, in my mind, God is definitely real, but if aliens do exist, then we need to take a good hard look at Scripture and reevaluate whether the biblical canon and the Bible as it currently exists is, one, is it all encompassing? Have we included everything in it that needs to be included? Two, that the veracity of the things that are in the Bible, which I believe a lot of the Bible can be verified. But also, one thing I've never understood, and I'd like to talk to people about this, is the fact that the Bible has always been described to me as being God-inspired but human written. And so if it's written by men that can be corrupted, I don't see how we prove that it's God-inspired.
You can't prove it, but that's a faith thing. The only reason the Bible is noteworthy is through faith, right? So we use it as a text for our faith, not a proof of faith.
Right.
Those are two separate things. There is no proof of faith, or faith would not exist. So we use the Bible as a text for faith, but it is not provable. There's a lot that is provable, but only through the word of man, not through actual accounts that we have pictures of or great documentation of.
Right, but going back to my earlier point that let's take it at face value that the Bible is God-inspired. if we had a set of humans, the Orthodox Christians, that sat down and decided what was going to be included and what was going to be discluded from the biblical canon, that would at least suggest to me that we are not receiving the whole message that God originally intended, or that it could be somehow obscured in some way. But I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm not saying I know that for sure, but it raises a question in the complete and total veracity that this is 100% God's message. Like when an artist puts out an album, they put out the album, and we've lost this a little bit in listening to music these days. They list, it used to be we'd put it on a record player and listen to the songs one by one in the album, and they would take you through a roller coaster of emotions. I think the Bible was meant to be constructed in a similar way.
I agree.
So if that's the case and we skipped a song here or there, that's going to change the message.
Yes, but I disagree with the notion that the Bible is the source of Christianity. I don't like when preachers...
I think a lot of Christians would disagree with you on that.
A lot of Christians are not that intelligent.
I agree.
How could that be? How could it be that the Bible is our only source of Christianity? That is foolishness. Your relationship with Jesus. By the way, they didn't have books until about, a couple hundred years ago?
And that's the other. A lot of people couldn't read until about 100 years ago.
Even then.
So they were reliant on somebody that could read the Greek and Hebrew to then read the Bible aloud to them. You don't think some of that was lost in translation?
Right. So the Bible is inconsequential to me. It is a source for my faith, but it is not my faith. The Bible has nothing to do with your faith.
Right.
That's where I think Christians get it wrong. And you hear all these preachers, well, do you read your Bible and go to church? Neither one of those have to do with Christianity. Neither one of them. That is not Christianity. Your relationship with Jesus is the only thing that matters in Christianity. Period. That is it. If you boiled everything down in Christianity, it is your relationship with Jesus. It has nothing to do with the Bible, has nothing to do with your church, has nothing to do with your fellowship, has nothing to do with your neighborhood, nothing. Has to do with your relationship with Jesus. The rest of it is an extension of your faith.
And if you're an expert and you listen to this and you wholeheartedly disagree and you want to come on the podcast, please.
Yes, I would
love to hear. I would love to hear more evidence, and I'll have you on with them as well. But I would love to hear evidence to the contrary, and I will start going to church religiously every single Sunday and reading my Bible every single day of the week. I will. Yeah. But until then, do I think that those are beneficial things? Probably. Debatable on the church at the state of today's church. Do I think reading your Bible is beneficial? Yes, and I do it frequently. But until I hear significant evidence that convinces me otherwise, I agree with you.
Well, it's a tool in the Christian bag.
Yes.
But it is not Christianity.
If you're morally conflicted and you need clarification, then maybe the Bible is a source that you need to reach for to look into Scripture.
It is the same thing as reading a manual on how to service your car. You know how to change the oil, but every once in a while you just got to flip back through there and make sure you're putting the right oil in there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it does take 5 to be 20. I was right. But I mean, I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
Okay, the transmission fluid needs changed every 60,000 miles. That's correct. I read that correctly. But to say that Christianity is based upon reading your Bible, going to church is nuts. And I heard Mike Huckabee say that the other day. Or when I was listening to Tucker Carlson's podcast, he's like, most Christians aren't Christians. They don't read their Bible and go to church. And it's like, well, neither one of those make you a Christian. Like, none of those do. It helps you. But again, I go back to most people could not read up into about 100 years ago.
You mentioned Tucker Carlson there, and I'm severely disappointed with his alleged conduct in the past week or so, and he has not refuted this yet.
Be careful to that, though. We don't know what was edited and what was not edited.
No, we don't. But all I'm saying is right now the evidence is pointing to that Tucker Carlson largely misrepresented the conduct of the events that happened in Israel in the past week, and he has not answered for that yet. And to me, if I'm a guilty person, or if I'm not a guilty person, the very first thing I would do is come out and refute those claims.
I don't think he will, because I don't think he cares. I think he hears so much noise in his life that he can't respond to every single thing. But we may be seeing half a video. We don't know.
That's true.
We do not know. And then it's very easy for us to jump to conclusions when we don't know. Just like the Epstein files. A lot of people that are implicated in the Epstein files are innocent.
Yeah, they didn't do anything
They didn't do anything wrong.
Trump's name appears hundreds of times, and Trump reported them to the Department of Justice years ago, and specifically named Prince Andrew, who's just been arrested in the UK, which says something about our government, that we haven't arrested anybody, and the most censored government of all time is now arresting people in the
But let me say this out loud. Fuck Kash Patel and fuck Pam Bondi.
Agreed.
They can go away for all I care. They're probably doing good work in some scenarios, but my faith in them is zero.
They've lost
zero. All credibility.
Yes, all credibility.
All
completely.
credibility.
That was a PR disaster for Pam Bondi, that congressional hearing. Talking about
the stock market.
The Dow. The Dow is up.
Oh my God.
401ks are up. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I'm about to write a huge check to the United States government for my taxes, and this is what we get. This is what we get. And the ICE raids. I'm pro ICE. I'm pro ICE, but for God's sakes, you're creating a PR nightmare. You're creating a PR nightmare. You should be doing it quietly, but we're in this age where every public official has to get in front of a camera every week. Do your job quietly. ICE officials should be doing their job quietly. The reason you're getting such pushback is because you're the ones out there on camera telling people what you're doing. Do it quietly. You do not owe people an explanation to get criminals out. Do your job and go home. That's what we need. We don't need people on camera telling people what we are going to do. It's been a PR nightmare. It looks bad. And this is why the left has such a stranglehold on people, is because it's so easy to defend something when there's the wrong narrative about it.
I'm more careful on the ICE thing, because I think I place a lot less responsibility on ICE being, because I think the reason that they're on camera more is forced by the left.
Of course, but there's ways to combat that.
I don't think that there is, really.
No, the right plays checkers, the left plays chess. Right? That's
it's been
always
forever. Yeah.
It's always been that way, and our problem is a PR problem.
But here's the thing. Barack Obama deported 4 million,
way more people.
4 million illegal aliens during his presidential term. Donald Trump so far has deported 2 million. And
but you know what Barack Obama didn't do? He didn't broadcast it.
Yes, he did.
No, he did not.
He got in front of cameras and talked about how it was important that we got illegal aliens out of there.
And then he left it at that.
But the problem is that the left supported it. So then if you don't have mainstream media even not mainstream media, even these individual influencers, these Antifa guys out there causing outrage on the internet, then you don't have to respond to anything, because there's nothing to respond to. Because when the media on the left supports something, there is no issues anymore.
No. And again, we can wrap this all up in the Epstein files. Where's the public outrage from the left?
I wish there was a way to get everyone to stop paying taxes.
Man, we don't have to pay taxes if we take our government back. If we take our government back, we don't have to pay taxes. I would shut down this whole country for 6 months and rebuild it from the ground up. That, in my world, that's what I want to do. I want to show up to the United States government with 100,000 armed individuals and completely take it over. Shut everything down and kick everybody out. And then we provide a council that takes the people that we're in and we vet them and we put them back in with a immediate fire button on them. If they lie or they mishandle any issues, they get fired immediately. And if they create treason or do anything like that, it's immediate death sentence. You send money to an official that involves in a sex ring, which we did with Jeffrey Epstein. We do with Bibi Netanyahu. You're dead. You're dead. We are no longer going to do this. But here's the thing. We can yell this into the void of the world, but we need someone
with a real
audience to pick up the ball, because my dumbass, nobody likes me enough to do that. I'll be there and support you. You'll be there and support them. Hundreds of thousands of people are ready to go. We just need someone to pick up the ball and move it forward. Take it to Washington. Let's start in our state. Let's get 10,000 people in South Carolina to go to the Capitol and take over the Capitol. And we'll tell Washington, no more money until you get this shit straight. 10,000 people, that's all it takes. We don't have to be armed, we have to be violent. But what we can do is go over there and take it over and say, no, we're shutting this shit down. We're not collecting state taxes, we're not collecting federal taxes. No, no more until this stuff gets straightened out. We want illegals off benefits. We want SNAP benefits audited. We need all the state audited. The federal government gets no more money until the people in the Epstein files are prosecuted. All people are prosecuted. We get fair and equal elections, right? We get an equal justice system, and we get a full accounting on all our tax dollars. And any waste, fraud, and abuse is immediately cut. It doesn't matter if it's 5% or 10%. All the money goes away until it's all rooted out. How can we collect $3 trillion and be in, I think our GDP is like $6 trillion, and still be in debt? It's insanity. And by the way, I don't believe in the national debt. I believe it's fake. I believe the only reason we have national debt is so you'll keep paying your mortgage. But how can ordinary people get by with the taxation we have now and the waste, fraud, and abuse that we have right now? I don't understand. People are suffering on a large scale, and our government just keeps taking more money and more money and more money, and we get nothing for it. Little to nothing for it. I say we kick all the money back. I don't think we should shut down the economy. We tell everybody, keep your money. Go take care of your communities. You don't need the federal government for anything other than national security. The rest of it can be kicked back to the states.
Which is originally how it was designed.
That's the way it was designed. I would be totally okay if we kicked the federal government out of South Carolina. Said, piss off. You protect our borders, we'll take care of everything else. But Henry McMaster's a twat and won't do anything. He'll be on the board of Boeing and when he retires. And the next goofball, whatever her name is, that goes in there, she's not going to do anything. And then she'll be on another board, and she'll make $800,000 a year as soon as she gets done. Because
I don't think they've been elected yet.
No, she hasn't been elected yet. But I had a chance to meet her a month ago, and I didn't want to meet her because it would just drive me crazy asking her questions. Our DNR offices, our South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, South Carolina is the most corrupt place I've ever seen in life. It has turned into tyranny with DNR offices. You can't hunt and fish in South Carolina anymore with getting bothered by a DNR officer. Then they want to search your whole boat, search your whole truck, ask you for every little thing. You'd be lucky if you don't get to walk away with a ticket. Our natural resources are falling apart. Our turkey population is declining. Our deer population is declining. Our hunter retention is down. Our fish stocks are down. We have more boaters than ever moving from out of state, and they're using way too big of boats on the bodies of water. We have erosion problems. We don't have controlled burns. We have a logging problem. And we give them untold amounts of money, and nothing gets done. We've turned into a police state instead of a proactive state that works for the community. And the only way I see that song, we can't vote our way out of it. We have got to shut down the system and restart.
If I know you disagreed with me last night when I said this, but if voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it.
Local elections matter. The problem is,
I'm talking on a federal level.
On the federal level, but we don't need them. That's my point. Just shut it down.
But currently, local elections they just keep the status quo of what the federal government is handing down. So they're almost inconsequential.
Yes, I say we need a flat tax for the feds, right? We need a 15% flat tax across the board for the federal government. What that does not pay for gets cut. Sorry. No more money. States have a right to collect taxes, but they can do it through property tax and not income taxes. South Carolina has a 6% income tax for corporations, 3% for trades. And it's ridiculous. Why do we keep giving you money? Tennessee does it without a sales tax. Texas does it. Florida does it. So we got to pay South Carolina. Then you got to pay sales tax. Then you got to pay property tax. And then you got to pay tax on everything else. And it's just, by the time you get done, you're almost at 50 to 60% taxes.
Florida does it without income tax.
That's what I just said. And Texas and Tennessee, and I believe Wyoming and Montana, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like, what are we doing here? And they have better roads than we do, by the way.
Our roads are the worst in the country.
That's not true. Californians are horrendous, and their infrastructure is horrendous, and they have more tax dollars than we do. That boils down to corruption. But let California be California.
Yeah.
I don't really care. South Carolina, I would love to fix. I would love to fix it and say, no, federal government, you get no more. You don't get to tax our people. And we're fine without your protection. You protect our borders because that's what we pay for. We will give you X amount of dollars per year to secure our border. The rest of it will be taken care of by South Carolina. And we're going to better allocate these dollars than you can. That's what I would do. If I was governor like that, that's what would happen. But the truth is like, I was going to run for governor this year, but I'm not connected. I didn't go to the Ivy League schools. I'm a high school dropout. I have a minor criminal record, which I have atoned for, by the way. And it was all petty stuff. But you have to be so well connected in these days and scratch everybody's back. And you have to get donor dollars that then you're going to kick back in tax grants for them to build a factory somewhere and screw over more South Carolinians with more tax dollars. It's just how it is. And it's almost to the point where it can't be fixed with voting. I'm almost to that point where I don't think it can be fixed with voting. So I would agree with you there, but on local, like city and like county councils, you can affect a lot of change there. But state and federal, I don't think it's possible. But again, it takes 10,000 people to solve this issue. It takes 100,000 federally. Just no more. Because right now is the best time for us to take over the federal government under the optics of the Epstein files. It's the first time in a generation that we've had the opportunity to take over the United States and haven't done it. What are they going to say? Oh, well, we're going to protect these pedophiles. We have the opportunity to go to the federal government and say, no, we're taking over because you have protected pedophiles for too long and criminals, and let more people in our country, like the Somalians and the South Americans into our country that are ruining our communities. We're not taking it anymore. We are not taking it anymore. What are they going to say? Yeah, we are. And by the way, what do you think they're going to do? Send the military on us? The military is not going to fire on its own people. First of all, they can't use the U.S. military inside the United States unless they classify you as a domestic terrorist group, which they're not going to do. And the National Guard is not going to fire on its own people. So who's going to stop us? Who would stop us? It's our fucking buildings. We pay for them. We own them. Those are our buildings. I would just take them over.
I wish there would be some sort of action. I don't know that we would ever be able to get enough people. I don't think it will happen because we'll never get enough people that are willing to do that. We'll never get 100,000 people.
Well, let's start here. Let's see if we can get 10,000 people to show up in Columbia and demonstrate there that we want no more state tax and we want the federal government out of South Carolina, except for tax money to protect our borders, which is all they're good for. The rest of it, gone. We'll take all that money, put it back in South Carolina. We'll create our own welfare programs where we can do it better. We'll allocate the money to school systems. We don't need the federal bureau, the federal bureaus. We don't need them. The FBI is already in South Carolina and the CIA is already in South Carolina. That's part of the defense budget. Okay, well, we'll keep that budget. We'll allocate that money to you. The rest of you piss off. We don't need you. And if every state would have the balls to do that, the federal government would have almost no power. Audits, federal tax audits on the people of the United States, and then state audits, get out of here. No way, dude. It's an insane thing. And South Carolina should have done this a long time ago. But, I mean, we don't even have the 9/11 files.
No, we don't even have those yet.
What are we doing funding the federal government anymore?
I think the ironic part of the time that we're in is that I've been what would have been labeled as a conspiracy theorist for a long time. I don't think the JFK story is as presented. I don't think the 9/11 story is as presented. I've been a longtime believer in a world cabal power, that the deep state government that's been running things, and it's not the presidency, right? There's fundamentally within the U.S. government and within all governments, there is, for example, if you have a 40-year career in the FBI, what's 4 years to you, right? If you're powerful in the FBI and you're not Kash Patel or the director of the FBI that gets renominated every 4 years or every 8 years or whatever, the president decides, then you can afford to just wait out the president, right? If you are the second in command and you don't get renominated every 4 years, you can just wait for the next president to do whatever the fuck you want. Like, you don't have to do it under President Trump. You can just wait. So that's where the power really lies, is not in the presidential administration. It's in the second and third levels of our government, where those people never get reelected and never get cycled out. And they've gotten so used to their power and it's gone unchecked for so long that you get these disasters like the Epstein files, where these people are doing heinous things behind the closed doors of black budgets that we can't see. That's where the real power is.
The same thing has to do with the IRS. The IRS right now they can attack you through the IRS. It cost me 1.5 years of stress to get through a state audit, a South Carolina state audit, which they hammered me for 3 years of taxes. And ended up having to write them a check. And now I got to write a check to the federal government because the federal government wanted to audit me and they just kicked it back to the states. What they use it as a control factor. They know that if they audit one person out of every 1,000, it'll scare everybody into paying more taxes. They know if they prosecute one person for a minor crime, they know if they hide one thing and they get away with it, they can hide more stuff.
Which is the same concept as the reason that I want to bring back public executions. Because if we publicly execute everyone that is implicated and found guilty after a trial in the Epstein files on the South Lawn of the White House, and we kill all of them, we execute all of them by firing squad, what message does that send to everybody else in the world that is... Because, by the way, the Epstein files... This is the part that people aren't getting. The Epstein files is only 0.05% of all of the pedophilia and cannibalism in the world. As you mentioned to me yesterday, the Mexican drug cartels, I guarantee you the Saudi families everywhere in the Middle East, where literally the basis of their religion is a pedophile.
Yes.
You don't think all of them are raping young girls and murdering them and eating their intestines? You don't think that's happening everywhere else in the world? But this is 0.05% of all of it. So
let's worry about South Carolina. Anderson County just arrested 10 people yesterday in a ring that we're going to pay to molest a toddler. We should execute all of them.
In Columbia, in front of everyone.
No, in Anderson County.
I'm saying bring them to Columbia and televise it.
Execute them.
Yes, and execute.
Yes,
publicly televise their execution.
Not in jail, not 20-year sentences. No, bro, you're going to die. That is a death sentence.
And I'm tired of people waiting on death row.
But here's the problem. The government is so large, they can almost target you with that sort of stuff. In the cyber world, they can put kiddie porn on your computer. No problem. And then if you're just a target of that, by the way, I've never been interested in children. I don't have a deep swimming pool. I'm not feeling groggy. My guns are in safe places. My point is, they can do that to you. But that's why I think everything needs to be brought back to the states and we kick the federal government out. And we can do it locally. Anderson County should zap them tomorrow. It should be a quick trial like that. Zap them. They're dead. Put them in a grave, unmarked graves. Like, no, you don't get remembered, nothing. You're dead. But if we brought power back locally, that the community would take care of that. Back in the day, we used to take care of pedophiles. If there was a pedophile in your neighborhood, everybody knew it, and your uncle beat him up. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
Today, you can't do that. And it's because the overarching overlords of the federal government and the state government become so powerful that you go to jail for 10 years. It's an insane thing. We need to scale back power from the authorities that are within and kick that power back to very local powers. That would be what I would do. And again, it starts with 10,000 people in Columbia. And if every state did it and kicked the federal government out, guess what? They wouldn't have the budget to cover up stuff. They would only have the manpower to prosecute people, but the states would have the ability to prosecute their own people how they saw fit.
Yeah.
Why can we have abortions up to 9 months in some states, but we can't have executions? Seems insane to me.
Question. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it. So, I mean, where we're at today, I just don't have... I don't know, man. Last week was a rough week because I just drove around wanting to beat a pedophile to death with a baseball bat. And the truth is like, it happens right down the street here. It happens everywhere in the United States, but it's only because we've become a society of pacifists, and then we've rejected our responsibilities as a community to police our own communities. But I think we need to bring that back.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah,
this was a great time.
A lot of topics, this one. So, yeah.
This will be a lot to come through.
10,000 people. That's all it takes.
Yep. Leave it in the comments if you'll be there.
Yeah.
We'll get something going. We'll start a website.
Look forward to seeing you there. See ya.